This conference will now be recorded.
All right, this is Michael Pesch, and I'm going to go ahead and call us to order. And if we could go ahead and do the invocation and pledge, and I'll go ahead and lead us in the invocation real quick. Father, we thank you for today, and we ask that you please bless us with wisdom and grace as we discuss the town's future and help us put a cohesive game plan in place. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion for an agenda approval.
I move we approve tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, motion carries. And then I want to do a motion for minutes approval for the April 5th, 2022 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for April, what did you say, 5th?
April 5th. Yep.
April 5th, 2022.
Second? Okay, all right, motion carries. Thank you.
No, wait a minute.
Oh.
Discuss it.
Discuss the,
I've got something I'd like to say.
okay, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think in 6, the first paragraph about Paul Holder, I'd like to see it say less, because unless I'm the only one reading it that way, and I don't think I am, it sounds like the pier is going to wind up near Hardee's. Some of the topics were the pier and ensuring it was completed on time and under budget. Most residents want it back on the north side of the highway. The it can't refer to anything but the pier, so I'd be happy if it just stopped after, Councilmember Holder discussed the town council goal setting meeting held on March 10, 2022, and it stopped right there.
I'll look at it tomorrow.
Okay, it refers to the pier, and he didn't say north side, he said this side, which isn't going to make any better sense when people read it. That's all I have.
That's the only change.
Well, down under public comment, it's piddly. Second line under public comment, Lynn Livesey, believe it should be geared.
Yeah.
It should be what?
Believe it should be geared. It says it shall be geared. Where Lynn Livesey speaking? Second line?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
I'll look at it tomorrow.
Okay,
That's it.
so we'll table approval until next meeting,
I don't think we need to.
or can we approve it as amended?
Not for two.
I mean, we can approve it as with the, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so make a motion to approve it as amended.
Works for me.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All righty. Number 5, discussion item. Discuss the Surfside Beach Comprehensive Plan housing element. So Sammy's been reading through this. Does that have to be read through the way he's been doing it? Do you guys want to just hit highlights? Because most of the back end of this is just tables.
In the tables, times have changed so much, the tables, I don't think they tell us anything at all right now.
Yeah.
I think Alex is,
Yeah, I'd go for going
go
through
through
the
that.
goals.
Yeah,
Go
that'd be
through the
great.
goals. No, and the goals actually match up pretty good. Just some things before we get into the goals that I noted was there's quite a few discussion items related to the recession.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't be a bad idea to roll in a pandemic related discussion when we sit down and talk in July. And it looks like a lot of their concerns that they were addressing with market value movement is holding true because of the pandemic in the last 2 years. So there's not a whole lot of numbers pieces in Alex's piece because it was stating goals and stuff, but I think that would be worthwhile. And then there's a good bit here about rent. and they don't have a whole ton of rent information. So I thought it'd be good to get a little bit more rent information in here for long-term rentals, not short-term. Because I could only find one listed online today. So that was it.
Well, isn't that the consultant's job to
Yeah.
bring us all that?
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
saying for kind of points, I wouldn't mind seeing, because that's not reflected in Alex's list. I would like a little more information on the rental, the long-term rentals, if we can get it. For,
Yeah, that could be one of the upcoming goals for the consultant. Mhm.
yeah, or just for the consultant, not necessarily
Right.
for the thing, but just so
Right.
we can talk a little bit more about that. All right, so under housing element, we're gonna go off Alex's sheet, and then I'll just discuss each one, go down, and then y'all stop me if you have something to add. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep.
All right, housing goal 1, continue to maintain a balance between a vacation destination and a family-oriented year-round community. They broke that down into 3 sub-goals. Promote housing options that tend to attract younger individuals and families to relocate to Surfside Beach. And some of the housing options they talked about in the packet were planned development for detached or attached family centers. And I think we're pretty much landlocked in what options we can offer here right now. So, and we do a pretty good job of allowing that with zoning currently, right? So
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the tools are there if somebody wants to bring that to the town. 1B, provide sufficient area and zoning districts in the town to support transient accommodations while protecting established neighborhoods. We got R1, R2, R3. We're discussing the Pier District. I think we've done a really good job of kind of breaking out the commercial corridor, the residential corridor, and the short-term rentals. So it sounds like we've been pretty consistent with 1B. 1C, maintain the distinction in the town zoning ordinance between transient short-term rentals and long-term residential occupancies. We have a pretty defined section that, it's not like we've cherry-picked certain plots throughout town.
Yeah.
So I think we've done a really good job of maintaining that distinction.
I do have a question. Sorry, I didn't mention it earlier.
Yep.
You see it in a lot of places about attracting younger households. I'm not opposed to it, but why? Why are they called out to say we need younger people? For what and what purpose?
Possible, more of a long-term situation, possibly. I agree. I mean, I don't think we should just attract younger. I mean, if you really think about the percentage in population, the younger crowd was way low in percentage
Mhm.
compared to the higher. So, I mean, I agree.
I think part of it is just that, we like to be the family beach. So let's show that we got some families. And another piece of it may be back when John Harrow was deputy administrator, we talked about, he was concerned with the aging population in this town, that we're going to get to a point where all the people like me are going to die and we're going to have all these empty houses. And then what happens? So looking at the demographics in the future, we probably need something coming up underneath it. I think that those are probably reasons why, but I agree with Alex's question. I don't think it's that big a deal to, I don't think we need to die on that hill of finding younger people to move here.
No, I think it made a lot of sense when the town got started, and it talked about the town's kind of explosion in the 80s when we were, a lot of the Air Force Base families were building and moving into Surfside because it was right around the corner from work. It was close, it was affordable, it was obviously a nice place to live. I know there's workforce considerations for it. I talked about that a lot at the bank, actually, that, we have a lot of people moving here that put a stress load on the hospitality industry. We like to go out to eat. We have the ability to do so. We have the time, the money to do it, but we don't have hospitality staff. So, that would be one too, but I agree with you. It's hard for the town to do a whole bunch of things when the market conditions are so strong in dictating that the price of the property. Right.
We are a very small fish in a big pond on this stuff.
Yeah. Okay, to continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Housing goal 2, ensure there's a diversity of housing options in Surfside Beach to meet the long-term needs of current and prospective residents. And that was broken down into 2 goals. 2A, encourage the use of planned developments in Surfside Beach, but carefully evaluate proposals based on the following considerations. And those considerations are ensure the intent of the proposed planned development is to construct a true mixed-use development, not just to build exclusively a new residential development that would not otherwise meet the setback, square footage, and height requirements of adjacent zoning districts. Ensure that the approved planned developments are well connected and integrated into the town's established development pattern. Ensure that the costs associated with the planned developments, traffic, long-term maintenance of infrastructure, et cetera, are adequately addressed in the approval process. And 2B, continue to provide zoning districts that allow for a mixture of housing types and densities. For example, the town's R2 and R3 districts. So I know we talked about commercial development across the street, but we don't really have a whole bunch of large tracts in town anymore.
I don't know where somebody put a planned development.
Exactly. So that seemed a little straw man and filler to me and not really tailored to Surfside Beach.
It's a nice theory.
Yeah. And I definitely think that impacts the market around us, but I just don't know that we have that. And, you know, further in on, I'll talk about this, but I thought about the housing project next to Tupelo Bay that's going up outside of town limits and what that spurred in town. So, you know, we are continuing to reassess these, you know, homes, the square footage, setbacks and things like that. We talked about that a good deal with that project, which I think was about empty nesters and young families, building something affordable and not setting a restrictive square footage. You have to come to Surfside Beach and build a 3,500 minimum square foot is, you know. So any other comments for 2? All right. Housing goal 3, preserve the quality of Surfside Beach's residential neighborhoods. 3A, require the construction of sidewalks in all new residential developments and retrofit existing neighborhoods to increase the connectivity of the sidewalk network. 3B, encourage development patterns and access management strategies that reduce excessive through traffic on residential streets. 3C, protect the view sheds and the town's scenic features, including the lakes, parks, and the beach. 3D, permit parks and other community facilities within walking distance of the residential neighborhoods. 3E, protect the residential properties from nuisances and other incompatibilities through the use of context-sensitive zoning standards. Any discussion about number 3?
I don't know what 3E means. Protect residential properties from nuisances and other incompatibilities through the use of context-setting zoning standards. I guess it's the context-sensitive zoning standards.
Yeah, I'm not, that seems like really, really fancy language for having a gradient zoning, which I think we've done
They can
a
stop
pretty
after
good job at doing.
incompatibilities.
Yeah, so not having commercial, but right up against, you know, we have in that the gradient districts. But I think we've done a pretty good job considering the amount of land we have.
The other thing is 3A, that's all about money. That's all that is, the sidewalks.
Yeah, and we discussed that last week as well.
Yeah,
And sidewalks was in here 5 or 6 times.
I don't know how much we're doing to project the view sheds. We talked about that too, dredging some lakes and things.
We did, and we just recently discussed the height ordinance when we were talking about the pier district. The tree ordinance goes right into that view shed, and we also discussed, I think it was back in early 2020, the grants for the parks.
Mhm.
So it's cost prohibitive to revert the parks at this point. So we've addressed a lot of these in the last 2 years. The 3D, the walking distance thing, you know, the town's actively talking about parking. It's a hot topic. Everyone's talking about it. So I think that walking distance piece in particular is kind of on the top of everybody's wish list right now.
Well, the town's only 2 miles long. It depends on how far you can walk.
That's true. Any other comments? All righty, we'll forge on. Housing goal 4, incorporate design standards that ensure the compatibility of various housing types within local neighborhoods and commercial districts. 4A, maintain setback density and use standards in the R1 district to ensure its continued residential character. 4B, maintain height standards, especially along the ocean front, in order to preserve the overall residential character of the community. And 4C, adequately enforce the tree protection and landscaping ordinances.
I think they're all important.
Yeah, and we regularly talk about each of
Yeah.
these. We talked about the tree ordinance not that long ago.
Do we specifically protect R1 more than R2? I know those differences.
R1 so limited in what's permitted. It's the most stringent in town.
Yeah.
Restrictive. It's the most restrictive in town.
So it goes to
R1.
the biggest setbacks.
Right. And they only allow for single family.
Does R2 allow?
They allow single families and duplex.
Mhm.
In smaller lots, right?
Yes.
And we've had a lot of discussion about, whenever we make changes, figuring out how many properties in town are going to end up being grandfathered in, and whether or not the changes we're discussing it has made sense. We've brought that up a few times. Anything else? All righty. Number 5, consider the development of mixed use corridors in Surfside Beach. 5A, identify areas for potential consideration for a mixed use district or corridor. 5B, establish standards which restrict commercial uses to those that are suitable and present a lower likelihood of creating nuisances. Establish limitations on commercial floor space within a mixed use district to ensure compatibility. The commercial square footage restrictions should be catered to that of a typical neighborhood commercial market area. Set appropriate off-street parking and curb cut standards which promote a pedestrian-friendly environment. Include provisions for sidewalks in all designated mixed-use districts, and allow outdoor dining spaces or similar outdoor activities under established limitations.
All right, I'm going to mimic Alex. Why? Why do we care if we have some mixed use districts? We've got empty retail now. What's the advantage of establishing some?
Well, and I think this is something that we've also, to some extent, turned over to the market, when
Yeah.
we got new businesses down in the district, which are doing exactly some of these things. And we've considered them, we've allowed them, and there have been
And
a
I
net
think at the
positive.
time when this was developed, they were looking at live there, work there,
Yes,
live upstairs, work
Residents
downstairs.
upstairs.
Yeah,
and I think we were pretty much looking at Surfside Drive.
that's exactly.
It was
Yeah.
somebody's
Put it
vision,
back
but
down on it.
it ain't happening.
No,
You know?
Yeah. Mhm. And there's not much live workspace in Horry County, is there? Do you know?
just the planned developments like Market Commons and
The
that.
market common is a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah,
And I think there's one over by Fantasy Harbor, by Arrowhead.
yes, I think there is.
Yeah, those are the only two I know of.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Moving right along, all right. Housing goal 6, support the efforts to provide housing that is suitable to the growing senior population. 6A, encourage the increase of mixed-use developments which offer seniors convenient access to various goods and services and minimizes property maintenance needs such as landscaping, home repair, etc. 6B, facilitate the provision of housing rehabilitation assistance to those who qualify, in particular seniors, so that they can safely remain in their homes. 6C, review and consider the permitting of assisted living facilities in Surfside Beach, which would enable residents to continue living in the community. 6D, make investments in the local neighborhoods, such as sidewalks, bike lanes, and a dedicated senior center that promotes an active community for all residents. 6E, permit accessibility design features such as ramps and residential structures so that elderly residents can safely and comfortably age in place in their own homes.
What's the difference between 6B and 6E? It's both about access.
6B I read as a provision of something like the town providing some kind of incentive for house rehab.
Isn't that what BZA's been doing by allowing?
The handicap ramps. No,
Yeah.
They actually changed the ordinance to allow that.
Yeah.
there's been progress in that area with not making people get out of their homes because they couldn't access them anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, last year we discussed ADA compliance and the setbacks, didn't we?
As far as dedicated senior center, well, we've got one run by the county, and that keeps getting, people keep going around in circles on that. My understanding is that most of the people it accommodates don't even live within the town.
Wow.
So I don't know if we want to get all excited about establishing our own senior center, or get into another situation where we're saying, no, you can't come in because you live in Deerfield.
Well, it's kind of the community garden project
Yeah.
that blew up on Facebook. So I think we're still assessing and doing them as they come up. I can't think of something that we've actively said no to that was reasonable.
Well, we did have one request for some kind of a senior living or something a couple of years
On,
ago.
near 10th Avenue South.
They were,
It was affordable housing for
okay,
seniors.
right. And I remember a lot of discussion about, oh my God, you can't sit those people down in the
Oh, right.
middle of business 17, yeah,
Exactly, that's right.
whatever. I don't remember exactly why it went away, but it went away.
Okay. Any other comments? All righty. Sorry.
I think sidewalks is probably going to be in every one of these goals, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like when I was reading through the packet, I heard sidewalks a little bit more than now that I'm seeing everything listed out. So maybe I was rereading the same section too many times.
Nice idea. All we need is the money to do it with. It wasn't that long ago. I think wasn't council kicking around sidewalks, or there were some comments made about, yeah, that would be nice, but. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump into 7. Housing goal 7, preserve and grow the Surfside Beach housing stock in a strategic and sustainable manner. 7A, ensure new housing developments fit into adjacent neighborhoods by incorporating sidewalks. Provide open space that is accessible to the entire community, and discourage street designs which utilize cul-de-sacs. 7B, adopt and enforce property maintenance standards for housing units that are not kept in good repair and become nuisance properties. 7C, protect residential properties from impacts associated with flooding or other natural disaster events, such as hurricanes, by strictly enforcing the town's flood damage prevention ordinance and building codes. 7D, promote sustainable building practices for new residential developments, such as low impact development, and encourage LEED certification. 7E, encourage the involvement of neighborhood organizations in providing the town input on concerns that affect the quality of residential neighborhoods in Surfside Beach. You know, a lot of this is, again, we're not dealing with large tracts of land in town anymore routinely. So the housing development piece isn't really a immediate concern to me, I don't think.
It would be nice if we were, but it's really just a lot of words that aren't helping anything.
You know, I think that's language that's suitable to a county and not so much a 2 square mile town.
I think that perhaps when we engage with the consultant,
Mhm.
7B specifically there kind of touches on like the maturation of the town, where less focused on new build out and make sure you put a cul-de-sac here. Like this is more about, we've got aging houses, and I'm not looking for anybody to be the police on what somebody deems a nice house, but it will naturally become an issue that may require its own goal around, you know, just, I guess our average house age here is probably 40 years old, but in 10 years, it'll be 50. So things fall apart structurally.
And the town has adopted the International Property Maintenance Code.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Don't you feel we have sufficient rules?
Oh, yes.
The problem
And
is
we're
we
in the
need about
process
10
right-
people to enforce them.
Yeah, we have one code enforcement officer, and he's dealing with 4 very dilapidated homes now.
Mhm.
It is a long process, but
That might be
Sure,
the
there's
ones I'm
one.
thinking of.
Yeah,
I think one of them's got a tree growing out of its roof.
yes,
So, yeah.
one of those. Yep.
But we can't touch it because we can't cut down a tree.
Whose fault is that? No.
We're gonna call it art.
Sculpture garden.
Yeah.
I will say, it doesn't seem like nearly every property is like that, though. We have a lot of people that come in, upfit and breathe a lot of life into some of our older properties too.
There's a
So,
lot of that happening.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how many people have painted their brick houses.
Yeah.
yeah,
Seems to be a thing right now.
And actually, when this was written, residential was allowed in C1. It's not anymore.
Mhm.
So you did have the larger tracts that you could have put some residential homes on, but it's not allowed in C1 anymore, so kind of makes it a mood issue.
Yep. All right, y'all ready? Housing goal 8, actively address issues related to the availability of affordable housing. 8A, coordinate with nearby communities to address concerns related to the workforce housing needs associated with the regional tourism-based economy. 8B, recognize other workforce housing needs for key personnel such as firefighters and police officers. 8C, continue to participate in programs such as the National Flood Insurance Program and the ISO rating system to ensure that homeowners are receiving the least costly flood and homeowners insurance possible. Just some thoughts real quick about 8A. There's only so much that we can do. We just don't have the space to put in a workforce related project. And, a lot of that workforce is going to be heavily impacted by, municipality decisions that we are also part of, such as county or state. So, I know we didn't have any J1s for most of the 2020 season in town. So that would be another concern. And I don't know that I've ever heard any complaint about our firefighters and police officers not being able to access the facilities here because of distance.
They're probably not paid enough to afford too much in the town.
Right. But again, it's market conditions. It's not.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my view is this whole thing, it is a problem, but I don't think little Surfside Beach can fix it.
And it's not just us. I mean, residential permits were up almost 30% for 2 years running on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
Well, I know when Chief Hoffman was talking about bringing new officers on and stuff, they were talking about driving the vehicles home and saving time instead of driving back and changing the cars and stuff like that. So maybe some of that is kind of in that direction probably.
And maybe that's where it makes more sense, right? It makes more sense to better equip the staff through other areas of the budget than it does to try and shoehorn in.
So with the 8C, do we still deal with the ISO or is that the CRS now or?
It's the fire department.
Actually, the building department has ISO and so does the fire department.
Okay.
So we are both participating, and of course, we're still in the CRS program.
Okay.
It seems to me that if we talk about this goal at all in the new comp plan, that we need to take out the first 2 words. I don't see how we can actively address any of this. How can a town this small actively address affordable housing?
And I don't know if we have to talk to that or not, do we? Do you know? Okay,
It's not a requirement.
I mean, we got to talk about housing, but
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think the housing element chapter just needs to be in the plan. I don't believe the goals particularly have to be.
Yeah, no, a lot of this felt like fluff language for much larger municipalities.
A
They
whole
didn't-
lot of this could be said with less words.
I'm pretty sure we can narrow this down to about 3 goals. All right, y'all ready for the last one? Housing goal 9, monitor trends in the local and regional residential construction and real estate market on a regular basis. 9A, continue to maintain accurate records on new construction projects and monitor indicators such as median construction value. 9B, follow regional housing market statistics produced by the Coastal Carolina Association of Realtors. 9C, develop mechanisms to monitor seasonal housing trends. As part of this monitoring strategy, differentiate between short-term rentals, vacation homes for part-time residents, and long-term occupancies. 9D, monitor the occurrence of property foreclosure in the community and work closely with the property owners and banks to ensure that the foreclosed properties are being maintained. This is another one of those things where I think that we could probably bubble this down to one bullet under one of these other
I agree.
sections. I don't think we need to call anything specific, such as the Association of Realtors or talking about the construction value necessarily.
Sabrina, is much of this done on a town level or is most of it on the county level?
We do 9A
Uh-huh.
and the business license does 9C.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and the rest is generally on a county level, yes.
I think this whole element can be collapsed.
I think so. I think 9D can be removed. Hopefully they don't. They wrangle inflation in before that becomes it needs to stay. But, all right, any other comments before I open it up for public comments? Any general questions, meaty tidbits you guys want to share?
I think probably in the front part of this, we could use, there's probably more information than necessary in the front end of this section, don't you think?
I think so.
We got 10 pages. We can do it in 2 or 3.
I really do think that this could be truncated quite a bit. I mean, we got a random picture of the town
Extreme detail that,
for half a page.
isn't really necessary. There is one sentence right at the beginning. Where is it? Somewhere where it talks about, it's on page 75. It says, overall housing in Surfside Beach is atypical for communities along the southeast coast where oceanfront high-rise developments are commonplace. The town's development pattern of traditional neighborhoods and scale-appropriate housing contributes to the family beach atmosphere of Surfside Beach. I think probably we ought to jump off of that. I mean, isn't that pretty much the point? We need to not tinker with stuff, but protect what we have.
I don't think so.
I think the whole thrust of this section ought to be protect what we have.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe pivot the notion to what makes this town different rather than the breakdown of what's inside the town.
Right.
Single versus duplex of what could.
Protect us
little value.
mainly from the overdevelopment going on in the county. And if I recall correctly, back when council was looking at their pros and cons, I don't remember what kind of a session it was, but on the list of negatives or threats was the proximity to Myrtle Beach. Now, what does that tell you? Not just in a housing sense, but, and that goes for law enforcement and most things. We're doing a good job of holding where we are, and I think the idea is to continue that.
Yeah, I think just to double down on that, there's a lot of push for conformity throughout a lot of the discussion in here, when I don't think conformity is a reasonable goal, especially not given the expansion that's going on in town right now, because we just don't have the space.
Yeah.
So, all right, good.
I want to stay atypical.
Do you have access to the residential permits for Horry County?
I do not.
You don't? Okay, I'll see if I can dig it up. That's something interested, and I saw it on a report that I'd like to share with you guys, but it has been absolutely nuts these last 2 years, what the permitting levels are over 2019. And I'd be interested to see what it's been like here, because It does look like there's construction going on in town, but I don't know that we're syncing up with the county. I can't imagine that we are.
Oh, no.
But we do have.
It's busy for us, but I don't think it's.
I bet there are 5 new houses on my street.
Mhm.
The good news is that they're nice houses.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the new houses are. Alrighty, any other comments before we move down the agenda? All right, I'll open it up for public comments at this time. Yep, just name and address, please.
Carolyn Kravlik, 512 13th Avenue North. I don't know whether this is a topic for this committee, but I would like to raise it. And that is to put in the town plans a sidewalk along Cedar Drive between 8th and 12th North. It is a very hazardous section for walkers in our town. And I think a sidewalk would really be an improvement to the town. I know folks that will not walk that stretch of roadway because of the lack of a sidewalk there. At the same time, you see lots of walkers, lots of bicyclers. There's a lot of activity along that stretch, and a sidewalk would be a great addition to the area. And I think there's plenty of space along that curve. I don't know if you all are really familiar with that curve. It's a pretty significant curve. And when people are walking in that area, the motorist rightfully move into the opposing lane. And the result is those motorists are at risk for the oncoming traffic, which they cannot see. And so anyway, I encourage you all to put into the town plans a sidewalk in that area. I also encourage you to add bike racks to Surfside. I know there's a lot of discussion about the lack of parking and things like that. Well, people can ride bicycles in this town, except for there isn't a place to put your bike when you go to some of the public spaces in the town. My husband and I recently went over to Benjamin's via bicycle because it was a nice day and what have you. But there's no place to put your, to chain your bike or to put your bike. So instead, we're chaining our bikes to the guide wires, which that's ridiculous. Bike racks are not that expensive. We should have a number of them in the town that will encourage people to use bikes, leave their cars behind, which we could all stand to get a little more exercise and fewer vehicles on the road. So please put in some bike racks to help us out. Okay, are those two things within the bailiwick of this committee?
I think so.
We can make suggestions. We just talked about sidewalks a good bit. Not specific plans, but more comprehensive plan and having a goal going forward for the capacity to have them. So we didn't talk about specific avenues or lanes or anything like that yet, but.
Well, in general, I'm sorry I missed that part of the meeting. I will say part of my difficulty with knowing what meetings are going on is that I think the website could be drastically improved in terms of providing information, providing
about to be.
agendas.
Yeah, I think they're rolling a new one out. Yeah, June.
I hope it is much more user-friendly than the current situation. Anyway, I would be in favor of sidewalks all over this town. It would be a big improvement, presumably covering over the open ditches that are around where the sewers don't, where the culverts don't connect and you have an open whatever. Is that where you're thinking about sidewalks going in?
It would be a pretty time-intensive project when we finally do discuss it. I know it's been cost prohibitive in the past. So we've talked about, and we've discussed it last meeting, about rolling it out in stages or what makes sense.
What wonderful to roll it out in stages. People do a lot of walking in this town, and sidewalks would make a lot of sense and make it safer to the extent you are covering the areas that are really ditches that are, the stormwater passage or whatever. It would be good to enclose those just from a aesthetic standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and from a standing water standpoint, just to not be as bug friendly in terms of the exposure to humans and their pets and what have you. Anyway, and it might get some of the cars off the road if people felt that they were safer walking around town. Then we might get some of the cars removed from the roads. And Surfside really does need some of that. There's a little bit too much vehicular traffic in a town that is this size and so walkable and bike rideable that we should encourage those activities. Anyway, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
input. I think just as background, this is not the first time that sidewalks on North Cedar have been kicked around. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the issues is that state road. Some roads in town are town roads and some are state roads, and we can't just do it without a whole lot of
Can I
right.
ask a question? If it's a state road, the town has no jurisdiction to put a sidewalk in there? Is that what
I don't know enough about it to make that a flat out statement, but I suspect it's not anywhere near as easy.
Okay, can we, someone provide me with the information of who at the state I would contact to get a state
I would
deployed sidewalk installed there?
I would recommend discussing it with members of town council. This board just makes recommendations to council. And there's sidewalks, the word sidewalks is all through this comprehensive 10-year plan. But we don't decide to put a sidewalk anywhere. We just make that part of the plan, and council has to come up with the money. And they would be the
Unless
ones,
it's the state.
yeah, but they would be the ones to deal with state too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I, as a citizen, I guess I could make the
You try.
request, and they would.
I don't know.
Okay, I will find them. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other public comments? All righty, we'll move on to commission comments. Any commission comments?
Just perhaps a reminder of the RFP going out for the consultant for the comprehensive plan. What was the date?
It's actually ready, but we didn't want to publish it too early because council is not going to grant it till at least July 1.
Okay.
So it will go out this month. It's ready. Mhm.
I don't think I have anything more except in a general sense to repeat. I think that the housing element, we need to jump off from the point of protecting what we already have.
So when we talk about the RFP, are you saying this consultant will be with us on the 1st of July?
No, that's when that's when we're asking the budget to be approved. It begins in July. So if council approves the budget, that's when we can actually offer, I guess, award the RFP.
And do you know how long from that time he will be able to start.
Yeah, we're gonna
working with
ask
us?
immediately. Yeah, and it'll be in the RFP when they can start.
I would say bike racks would be a great recommendation for the parking committee. Just my personal opinion.
I think so. And I think you're right. There's really nowhere to park a bike in town. And
Well, sadly enough, we didn't used to need to chain them.
I've scrapped quite a few over the years. All righty. Anything else? I think I got most of my comments out of the way. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate y'all coming. Glad we had quorum tonight, and appreciate what everyone had to say about moving forward with the housing part of the comprehensive plan. And I'll go ahead and move to adjourn. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.